Nicolás Maduro Moros is one of the most influential and debated political figures in modern Venezuela. His presidency has shaped the nation during one of the most turbulent periods in its history. To supporters, Maduro represents the continuation of a socialist revolution focused on national sovereignty, social equality, and resistance to foreign influence. To critics, he symbolizes authoritarian governance, economic collapse, and the erosion of democratic institutions. Understanding Nicolás Maduro requires looking at his early life, his rise to power, his governing style, the crises Venezuela has faced under his leadership, and the most recent developments that have drawn global attention. Maduro was born on November 23, 1962, in Caracas, Venezuela. He grew up in a working-class family, an experience he often references as central to his political identity. Before entering national politics, Maduro worked as a bus driver for the Caracas metro system. During this period, he became active in labor unions, where he developed organizing skills and deepened his commitment to socialist ideology. His early political thinking was influenced by left-wing movements, anti-imperialist ideas, and revolutionary currents across Latin America. A defining moment in Maduro's life came through his relationship with Hugo Chávez, the leader of Venezuela's Bolivarian revolution. Chávez rose to power in 1998, promising to redistribute wealth, empower the poor, and challenge global systems dominated by powerful nations. Maduro became one of Chávez's closest and most trusted allies. Over the years, he served as a National Assembly deputy, Speaker of the Assembly, and later Foreign Minister. As Foreign Minister, Maduro helped strengthen Venezuela's alliances with countries such as Cuba, Russia, China, and Iran, reinforcing Chávez's vision of a multipolar world order. When Hugo Chávez became seriously ill with cancer, he publicly named Nicolás Maduro as his chosen successor. After Chávez's death in March 2013, Maduro became interim president and soon ran in a special election. He narrowly won the presidency, defeating opposition candidate Enrique Capriles. The results were contested, and allegations of irregularities fueled early political tension. From the beginning, Maduro faced questions of legitimacy and inherited a country already showing signs of deep economic and political strain. Maduro has consistently described himself as a socialist and a defender of Chavismo, the ideology inspired by Hugo Chávez. His government emphasized state control over strategic industries, social programs aimed at lower-income populations, and resistance to foreign political pressure. Maduro frequently used anti-imperialist rhetoric, particularly toward the United States, which he accused of attempting to undermine Venezuela's sovereignty. Critics argued that his leadership style centralized power within the executive branch, weakening independent institutions such as the judiciary, electoral authorities, and the legislature. One of the most defining aspects of Maduro's presidency has been Venezuela's economic collapse. Despite possessing the world's largest proven oil reserves, the country experienced hyperinflation that reached historic levels, a collapse of the national currency, widespread shortages of food and medicine, and rising poverty. Years of strict price controls, currency regulations, declining oil production, corruption, and mismanagement weakened the economy. Falling global oil prices worsened the situation as Venezuela depended heavily on oil exports for government revenue. Maduro's administration blamed economic warfare, sanctions, and foreign interference, while critics pointed to policy failures and lack of transparency. The economic crisis had severe social consequences. Millions of Venezuelans left the country in search of better living conditions, creating one of the largest migration movements in modern Latin American history. Families were separated, neighboring countries struggled to absorb migrants, and remittances became a critical source of income for those who remained in Venezuela. Within the country, frequent power outages, water shortages, fuel scarcity, and limited access to healthcare became part of everyday life. Political opposition to Maduro intensified as conditions deteriorated. Large protests erupted multiple times, notably in 2014, 2017, and 2019. Demonstrators demanded economic reforms, free and fair elections, and respect for democratic institutions. Security forces responded with force, leading to deaths, injuries, and mass arrests. International human rights organizations accused the government of repression and excessive use of force, accusations that officials denied, saying they were defending public order and constitutional authority. In 2015, opposition parties won control of the National Assembly, creating a direct challenge to Maduro's authority. This triggered a prolonged power struggle between branches of government. In response, Maduro supported the creation of a new Constituent Assembly, which assumed legislative powers and effectively sidelined the opposition-controlled parliament. This move deepened political divisions inside Venezuela and increased international criticism. Maduro's presidency placed Venezuela at the center of global geopolitical tensions. Economic sanctions were imposed by the United States and several allied countries, targeting Venezuelan officials and key industries. Supporters of sanctions argued they were necessary to pressure the government toward democratic reforms. Critics claimed the sanctions worsened humanitarian conditions for ordinary citizens. In response, Maduro strengthened ties with allies willing to support Venezuela diplomatically and economically, especially Russia, China, Iran, and Cuba. Maduro's re-election in 2018 became another major turning point. The vote was widely disputed after several opposition parties boycotted the election, citing unfair conditions and lack of transparency. Many countries refused to recognize the results, while Maduro insisted the election reflected the will of the people. This dispute led to further political isolation and intensified Venezuela's internal crisis. Media control was also a central feature of Maduro's rule. The government operated extensive state-run media networks and imposed restrictions on private outlets. Officials argued these measures were necessary to prevent misinformation and foreign influence. Critics said they limited freedom of expression and reduced access to alternative viewpoints. Despite widespread criticism, Maduro maintained a loyal support base. This included segments of the population who benefited from social programs introduced during the Chavez era, as well as crucial backing from the military. Maduro emphasized unity between civilian leadership and the armed forces, granting military officials significant roles in government administration and economic management. In more recent developments, international attention intensified following reports from US officials and media outlets claiming that Nicolás Maduro was taken into custody by US authorities as part of an operation connected to long-standing criminal indictments filed in US courts. According to these reports, the action was linked to allegations including drug trafficking and conspiracy charges that had been publicly announced years earlier. The Maduro government and allied sources rejected these claims, calling them false, illegal, or part of psychological and information warfare. At the same time, the report sparked global debate over sovereignty, international law, and the limits of foreign intervention. Reactions from the international community were mixed, with some governments urging restraint and dialogue, while others closely monitored the legal and diplomatic implications. As of now, Nicolás Maduro remains one of the most polarizing figures in global politics. Venezuela continues to face serious economic, political, and social challenges, though there have been limited signs of stabilization in certain sectors. Negotiations with opposition groups, changes in international relations, and internal reforms will continue to shape the country's future. Nicolás Maduro's legacy remains deeply contested. His rise from bus driver to president reflects the power of political loyalty and revolutionary ideology. His presidency reflects the immense difficulty of governing a nation under intense internal division and external pressure. Whether history ultimately remembers him as a defender of sovereignty or as the leader under whom Venezuela's institutions declined will remain a subject of debate for generations to come.